Hello and welcome to this edition of Bayou Time. I'm your host, Keith Whiteside, licensed clinical social worker. Thanks for joining us. However you may be joining us, we appreciate it. We always like to check in with our favorite troopers over at Troop C to find out some of the things going on. And fortunately, they've done a wonderful job of helping us kind of understand the things that they've had to deal with and some of the things we've all had to deal with in a timeline here at the end of 2021. We welcome in Trooper Ross Brennan. Ross, thanks for being here.
Glad
we appreciate
to be here.
it.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Of course, Louisiana Police Department, Troop C Public Information Officer. And look, we've dealt with a whole lot. We've dealt with a whole lot through COVID, but we've really dealt with a whole lot here through the end of 2021. Finally had something good happening over in April, getting back to normal, huh?
Yeah. So last year was surely eventful. I mean, but at the beginning, it was starting to slack off a lot of those COVID restrictions. So we were allowed to go back into some of the schools. So as far as the sudden impact program, actually at the beginning of the year in April, we were able to go into Covenant Christian and not only do a sudden impact program, but we were able to do a mock crash. So show the students, about 100 students, the actual potential effects whenever somebody does drive impaired by having a stage crash in the sense out there, having paramedics, the ambulance, and police, and all that type of stuff show up. So that was a great opportunity to be able to finally get back to some type of normalcy in April.
Yeah, and that's such a huge impact. I remember seeing that. Sudden impact makes a difference. That mock crash is so realistic that it really leaves an indelible imprint. And hopefully those kids something to remember for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I mean, the visual is one thing to talk about, but see a visual side of it. And also see their fellow classmates involved in it, because it kind of puts a face with a number at that point.
Right, because when it touches that close to home, it really makes more of a difference.
Correct.
We've talked a lot about that with regards to dealing with and understanding the impact of Ida, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go as well.
Yeah. So back in July, we actually had a new captain join State Police Troop C. Right. So if you remember Captain Besson, he got promoted to major. Right. So Captain Lanny Bajeron came in and filled that spot. So unfortunately, though, it was kind of right at the beginning of Ida that he came in. So right whenever he came in, there was this statewide program, this group called Go for Kids. Okay. What they do is they donate go bags for foster children. I think there's a picture of us from the troop. But we have some go bags that were donated for foster kids in need. That way it kind of gives them something for that first night whenever they might find themselves in foster care. But as soon as that happened, Hurricane Ida struck. So it was kind of a trial by fire a little bit for the captain, because as soon as he started, Hurricane Ida ended up striking. But that brought a lot of devastation down here, and it's something we haven't really seen in this area in a long time. But what was great is, in addition to all the troopers in our area, so many other resources came in. I mean, you had troopers from Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, also troopers from across the state of Louisiana. They all come down here to help, one, try to rebuild and clear roadways and different things like that, but also help to give back to the community. We had multiple things where we gave back, whether it's a food drive or maybe a distribution site, different things like that. We also, at those distribution sites, we provided security, whether it was like a gas distribution site or food or water. So we were definitely out there in the community trying to give back some type of way. We had troopers that had MREs and food and water inside their unit, and they were out in the neighborhoods, some of the hardest hit neighborhoods that there were out there. They're out roaming the streets, talking with the public, talking with the people, and trying to do something to get back with them, some type of normalcy, especially after the storm.
Well, and look, one of the things that I brag about all the time is that the greatest gift that we can give is our gift of presence. And I promise you, one of the people that, as I got back into town about 10 days later, that's something I saw firsthand. There were troopers from everywhere.
Yeah. It's strange to see Florida Highway Patrol on 311.
Right. But that's just one of the greatest value of what we've seen in how we recover together is that people are coming to help. Yeah. And the troopers from all over, especially in those other 6 states, I mean, it's just wonderful to be able to see that.
It's definitely, I mean, it's twofold, too. I mean, in addition to them coming down here, anytime they have like a natural disaster or something like that, we'll send teams out there also. Right. So it's great to have that brotherhood. It stretches across state lines, and know that somebody out there has your back, because it's kind of overwhelming a little bit, especially because in addition to the troopers out there trying to help recover and get back to normal, they're also dealing with stuff back at home. And unfortunately, during a hurricane type situation, it's working straight days or straight nights during that whole duration. They don't really have days off to be able to take care of their own home. So while they're out there working, some of these other troopers that were coming in, they were actually putting tarps on the houses of these troopers or different things like that, like ones directly affected. Right. So it was definitely great to have that additional help come down here.
Well, and like one of the pictures showed, one of our troopers whose house got impacted, and you see the damage to his unit right in front of his house, and the damage to his home. And so, sadly, we've had a lot of difficult things as well. One of the things we can't talk much about, but maybe we'll finish with the shooting that took place.
So back in September, there was an incident that occurred on Bull Run Road. There was a subject. He went to a residence in the Shreve area, and he ended up shooting 2 civilians there. Well, as police officers were arriving on the scene, he actually fired rounds at 5 of our troopers, and one of the troopers was struck during that incident. It was minor injuries. He was released later on in the night, but he did receive some injuries in that. So that's kind of, just in one night, we could have had an incident where we lost 5 of our troopers. Unfortunately, somebody did pass away, a civilian did pass away in that whole circumstance, but that's something typically doesn't really happen a whole lot down here in Troop C, an event like that, but that was a pretty major event that we had.
Yeah, you have, we hear about these shootings quite often where, 2 civilians got shot, one of them ends up passing away, but like you mentioned, that's what troopers face every day.
Yeah.
The potential of being in harm's way with those kinds of things. And so it's just one of those things that we're really glad that and I know we can't talk a whole lot about that. That's still under investigation. But they'll work through the night. A manhunt through the night.
Yeah, there was a manhunt through the night, and they ended up locating the subject a little bit later on the following morning. But yeah, it was extensive, a lot of resources. You had not just state police out there, but pretty much all local sheriff's departments, even PDs, their SWAT teams and stuff were out there helping assist and locate this subject.
You guys kind of see the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so we apologize that you have to, but we appreciate what you do. But Troop C was actually given an award here recently.
Yeah, so we, in addition, also with Lafourche District Attorney's Office, we won an award through the Bayou Community Foundation out of Lafayette for leaders in law enforcement. And they just kind of recognized basically departments that do a lot with maybe not that much resources. And some of the things that Troop C was actually able to implement is called the Traffic Stat program in the area. So what we did is we partnered with the South Central Regional Safety Coalition to kind of identify problem areas within the troop, high crash volume, maybe high speeders, different things like that. Instead of kind of doing a shotgun approach towards enforcement, maybe focus on these areas that are kind of the hot spots. And what we found is that by going in there and maybe people running red lights, if we know there's crashes from that, or people not paying attention, distracted driving, speeding, we kind of went in those areas and focused enforcement on that. And we're actually able to see a lot of our injury and fatality crashes, or just crashes in general. Those numbers ended up dropping because we were out there specifically focusing on those hotspot areas.
Yeah, and some of those areas, some of the things we can't predict. November presented us with some tremendous challenges, especially the night that those 7 people were killed in one night.
So unfortunately, it seemed like after Hurricane Ida, we saw a significant increase in crashes in that area. Not just, of course, minor crashes, but also injury crashes and fatality crashes. Just one night, we had 7 people killed in our area. The first one occurred on 182 right there by Koto. They had 4 people that were killed in a head-on crash there. I think 3 males from Raceland and a female from the Houma area. And then later on that night in Chack Bay, they had those 3 female nickel students that were killed. And unfortunately, in both of those crashes there, impairment was suspected in the one with Chack Bay, but even the one before it, on the 182, was also suspected impairment.
Wow. And from that, it's one of those things where bad things happen, and we know that happens, but you guys were able to really think through, what do we do about this? And so hats off to all of the people. Let's talk a little bit about the leaders in law enforcement and this, what y'all have implemented to make differences.
So as far as the recent crashes and fatalities and things like that, we kind of, I think, Sheriff Craig Weber actually approached Captain Bajeron and said, what can we do to help lower these crashes, these fatalities from happening? So what they did is they actually, all the different agencies in the area, we had basically every law enforcement agency in Terrebonne, everyone in Lafourche Parish, Assumption Parish, St. James, St. John, St. Charles, Grand Isle, Port Fourchon, basically wildlife and fisheries. Every law enforcement agency around here, we actually met up a couple weeks ago and kind of threw some ideas out there. What can we do? And part of that idea process, we actually implemented a multi-agency DWI enforcement patrol that occurred between Christmas and New Year's. So we had people from Terrebonne, Lafourche, Thibodaux PD, even St. James Parish. They're out there patrolling, looking for impaired drivers. And we actually ended up finding 3 impaired drivers that were arrested. I mean, that's potentially 3 severe injury, fatal crashes that we prevented by finding those people. And so it's just, we have some other plans coming up. Sometime in January, we're planning on doing something possibly with Nichols PD. So we have some other stuff coming up, but that was actually the first step towards maybe multi-agency kind of targeted enforcement, like we kind of talked about for that award.
Yeah. And so one of the things that was really good in December is you guys got together and really made this toy drive something that was pretty spectacular.
Yeah, so we did a toy drive called Fill a Cruiser. So what we did is bring some positivity back into the area. So we held a toy drive for a week. We had troopers donate toys, people from the public. They all donated these items. And what we did is that troopers who kind of knew the area where they worked, some of them worked in hard-hit areas, especially after Ida, what they did is as they drove around, they would just locate kids and stuff, strike up a conversation, talk with them, and then offer them a toy from their cruiser. So it brought a lot of joy to a lot of kids, especially some where maybe they might not be even living in a normal home situation. They might be living in a trailer or living with relatives or different things like that. So we just tried to bring some positivity and some normalcy back to the area, especially with so many people dealing with so much.
Well, that and the other thing you do is create so much trust with the fact that you guys really care about your community. Only troopers that know their area can go and do that.
Exactly.
So it's really, really special. Now, we've had some changes as we wrap up the show. A lot of numbers to deal with, a lot of things that we've been faced with, huh?
Yeah. So this past year in 2021, unfortunately, it was one of our higher years, and I think only 2017 rivaled it. So we actually had 58 people that were killed on our roadways, and that resulted from 44 fatal crashes. My number was wrong there. We investigated over 1,000 injury crashes, over 2,000 property damage crashes, and arrested over 450 impaired drivers just in our area of Troop C. I mean, that's a lot. When you think about it, that's almost 500 people driving impaired on the roadway. And fortunately, there's probably more than that. But those were some of the stats and numbers from this past year. As far as sudden impact goes, we were actually able to, even despite the hurricane and everything else, we were able to complete 33 programs in our area. So
Here's
for the most part,
one of them.
Yeah, for the most part, the public schools in Terrebonne Parish have been completed. We moved on to the private schools, and then we're also going to be branching out, trying to get into possibly Lafourche Parish and Assumption Parish also. So.
Well, it's really interesting to know, that we've had a year that challenged 2017 with the highest numbers, but it's also encouraging to know that we're taking that information and doing something with it, trying to figure out what do we do. So appreciate this multi-task force, multi-team, and being able to do that, and all of the programs that y'all are bringing. And so we really appreciate your time, kind of letting us know, and we certainly expect that 2022 is going to be a brand new year, and we got a lot of good things to look forward to. Huh?
Hopefully so.
All right.
Definitely.
Well, Happy New Year to you, Brennan.
Same
Thanks
to
so
you.
much. All right, and that'll do it for this segment. Don't go anywhere. A lot more Bayou time when we continue.